So everyone thinks the market is strong right now, but something doesn't add up. SPY's pushing higher, but the stocks that usually lead this market are not. The Mag 7, the names that carried this entire rally are starting to lag behind SPY, starting back in like October of 2025. So it's been a little while. But when leadership diverges from the index, the market doesn't just ignore that. It usually means one of two things is about to happen. Either the leaders of the Mag 7 is about to play catch up, or the rest of the market comes back down. So we're going to break that down here. So let's first off, let's actually look at SPY itself. We'll go to the weekly, and we can see that SPY is sitting at the all-time high after a very, very massive, violent rally. So we hit the minimum target, and now we're sitting at all-time high. Now, one of the red flags, we're not going to go super in depth onto SPY, but one of the red flags we are watching is this bearish RSI divergence that is still holding. And so this is not a great sign longer term. And also, on this entire push higher, there is zero volume. I mean, it's just straight volume divergence too, which is not necessarily a bullish sign. Doesn't necessarily mean we'll crash next week, but it's definitely a red flag that we are watching. So we're going to actually break down the Mag 7 here. And one thing I'm going to show you is the divergence that this Mag 7 has had compared to SPY, right? You'll see that the Mag 7 actually started collapsing before SPY even started to go down. It was more just consolidating. Tesla was one. Meta was a really bad one. Meta was absolutely collapsing way before SPY even started its down move. Actually, when SPY started going down, that was actually the bottom for Meta for the most part. Google, on the other hand, held up pretty strong until the pullback happened. Apple diverged. Apple did start diverging before SPY started pulling back. Microsoft diverged very strongly. Microsoft absolutely just died off out. This one's probably the worst one out of the entire Mag 7 that has diverged from SPY. Okay, Nvidia that didn't. Nvidia just kind of followed SPY. Amazon, for the most part, Amazon basically followed SPY. So really, Meta, Apple, Microsoft, and Tesla have all diverged from SPY, while the leaders, mainly Nvidia and Google, has been following SPY on the dot. And so basically, we have two scenarios here, and is that the first scenario is that the Mag 7, the ones that have been diverging from SPY, are about to play catch up, and Meta is about to see a massive rally, and we're about to see a new all-time high, and possibly over $1,000 for wave 5. Same thing could happen to Tesla. Since Tesla has been diverging, we could go and see 460. And then once we actually get to that level, that's when we'll actually evaluate and see if we're actually going to go lower or push back to all-time high. But at least we're going to see 460 for Tesla. So that is like the bullish case I see. I'm not going to really go to Google because Google has already played catch up. Nvidia, the same thing. Nvidia probably is going to push up to 250. Microsoft, when it does play catch up, at least I'm probably going to see around 462. That would be the minimum level that we're looking at. Could be higher. It really all depends on SPY. But overall, that is kind of what I'm expecting for catch up. Now, the other way is if the market doesn't, or it's not the market, but the Mag 7 doesn't play catch up, and this is really actually, I guess, quote unquote correction, and then SPY is about to just make a huge manipulation leg, which is definitely possible, but that is not my base case. Then the bearish or second case would be that Microsoft, we do push for wave B, which will be the same target that was targeting before, and we roll over. Meta would invalidate this entire setup. It would just make new lows. Nvidia, again, same thing. We would not push up for wave E, and we'll just end up manipulating this all-time high, and then we'll end up just crashing, which I do not see. It's my second case, but I don't see it. Same with Apple. All these setups would have to be invalidated, which is possible. I mean, it is possible, especially if we get the manipulation leg, and especially with this new chairman, because the data says that whenever the Fed elects a new chairman, usually it tries to test them with a 10% correction or 10% pullback, right? And so that happens, and yes, obviously a lot of these setups are going to be invalidated because he comes in, I think, at the beginning of June. I could be wrong, beginning of June or end of May. We have like a few weeks, I think, maybe a month or so until he actually steps into office. But overall, those are the two scenarios that we're watching. My base case is we do play catch up for the Mag 7, um, especially for Tesla and Meta. Actually, Tesla is my second biggest position with TSLL, and then METU for Meta. So I'm using two times leverage just because there weren't big moves. Tesla is like a, let's say, 17, 18% gain to that purple zone. So it wasn't really enough for me to even think about taking it. But if I use leverage, then it is. So that is basically my thoughts on Mag 7. What is your thoughts on this slim when it comes to this divergence?
Yeah, I totally see the bearish divergence too. Now that you have it up on the screen, but Mags is flagging under all-time high resistance, and this was followed by like a death cross, a 50-day SMA, 200-day SMA crossover. So I think that shakeout, just like liquidated bunch of longs, a little short squeeze, running into this flag here. If you want to pull up MAGS, that's the Magnificent Seven
MAGS.
ETF.
Oh yeah. Let's see.
So that covers all these guys. So yeah, we had the death cross. Now we're back on the daily too. If you want to pull that up, we're going through a little flag under all-time high resistance. And yeah, I think given the power trend from the lows down at 55, and then the first point of consolidation up at 66, you can, if the flag does follow through, you can take that power trend, take the highs of the flag, right? So the lows to the high of the flag. That'll be the midpoint ultimately of the completion of the power trend. So what's that? 55 to 66. If it does follow through, I see upwards of 77 for a good target. But that's
Upwards
my
of
2 cents
77.
on
Yeah.
where Mags is at. I could dive deeper into a couple of the specific tickers in Mags, but all eyes right now are on this potential follow through of the flag under all time high resistance.
Hmm. All right. I actually didn't see this. Yeah, that is actually a really bad sign, especially with Spy's daily candle too. That was like that. So, that's
Yeah.
definitely something I'd be watching. That's for sure. Yeah, and I mean, we could definitely manipulate the all-time high for Spy, but personally, when I see if we do actually start pulling back significantly, not just short-term pullback, just to bounce out these EMAs, but if we do start pulling back like what people think like 10%, it's kind of hard for me to say that's just going to be a 10% pullback. I'm mostly leaning is going to be a much significant more pullback just because of how the Mag 7 looks, right? I mean, even with NVIDIA, right, a 10% pullback in the market is most likely going to send NVIDIA below this, I guess you can say wedge or whatever. And so if that happens, then that won't be a good sign, especially after manipulating that all-time high level, right? And when SPY makes that long-term bear short side divergence, right, that usually signals a correction. I mean, we had that in 2022. We had that in 2008, mainly in 2008. We see that with Bitcoin. Every single top on Bitcoin has did the exact same thing. That's actually how I called the entire bear market, right? It was really simple. Just reject resistance, manipulate the all-time high level after consolidation, right? We had that false push down, that massive fake squeeze, manipulate, and then that massive bearish R side divergence, and then corrected, right? And so Spy could do the same thing, right? I mean, where is that? 2008 here. Yeah, I mean, we did have a massive bearish R side divergence going into that 2008 correction, just like Bitcoin does on every single one of its correction, right? So, you know, if we do actually start pulling back significantly, kind of like how we have on that Mag 7, then, I don't see that being a short term pullback. It could. We would really have to just wait for what price is going to tell us. But to me, I just don't necessarily see that. What's your thoughts on that part?
I think if Mags does follow through, I think it'll definitely fuel Spy QQQ for another leg up in the power trend. I mean, but given it's a lockout rally, I don't know. It could definitely have a mean reversion. If that mean doesn't hold, then yeah, then yes, absolutely correction territory.
Yeah, yeah, so yeah. So I think if the Mag 7 or SPY doesn't hold the higher low, kind of either bouncing these EMAs or bouncing at one of these areas, which for SPY, yeah, SPY would just be probably a gap fill. But that would be a freaking, I mean, that would be, so how much would that be? Well, that's not even 10%. If people are right and we do get a 10% pullback, then we're just going back to that low, right? And that doesn't really make sense to me. So I think if we get a pullback below that gap or even below these EMAs, I think we're probably going to be pushing down to 603 and even possibly 565 for that gap down there. But I mean, I hope I am wrong, and I hope that what you think is right, and we do bounce of the EMAs because I'll make more money that way. But um, I don't know. It is a very tricky situation, especially when you look at the macro and stuff. It is a very very unknown market right now, right? I mean, when we had this pullback for a tariff, I mean that's got to be the easiest pullback I've ever called, and now it's just like it really I could see anything can go happen. I mean we could just freaking rip to freaking $1,000 for SPY if I freaking like who knows like I mean this market right now is just so iffy, but
I think one of the main things on the macro level, your bearish divergence here, and especially
yeah.
how it worked in BTC's tops and
Hmm.
whatnot.
Oh
I think that's something to keep an eye
yeah.
on.
So I've never actually seen a bearish short side divergence, especially in the long term like this, not play out. Right? It's just a question of when. Because I mean, as you can see, like just because we hit the top of the trend line doesn't mean we're correct right now. We still went higher for many months. It's just a question of when it's going to happen, right? So when you get to the actual R side divergences on the weekly or even higher on the higher time frames, but on the weekly in the particular, it has a 87% win rate. So in order, when it actually shows up on the chart, it'd be very naive to say that it won't play out, right? So it's it, it's definitely something to definitely watch very closely, right? And there's the other side of it was like, well, we need a major catalyst, right? We can't just enter a correction net for out of no reason, right? And I would agree with that fully. However, what was the catalyst for Bitcoin entering its correction, right? Other than what the chart said, right? There was none. So Bitcoin just corrected on its own, and like, well, people say we need a catalyst for SPY to correct, but Bitcoin didn't do that. I mean, I know there are two different assets, but well, I don't like what set in stone rule says they can't, right? So, or especially when people look into the actual small cap things, like almost like how they said Bitcoin, right? The altcoins have to run and recycle, and it didn't really. And then now they're saying, small caps have to run, IWM has to, go through the roof, and all these smaller names are have to soar. But I'm like, well, do we have to? Like what rule in the market says that has to happen, right? So, and that's what people are thinking, right? And that's kind of that was my base case, is that the Mag 7 from that divergence, right, does start to play catch up, and we do get that massive rally in the market. That was my base case. But
Yeah.
if we do make that manipulation leg, right, and we do end up filling that higher low or filling these EMAs, then, you know, it's definitely something that I would definitely keep consideration that we may not get that huge rally before a correction, right? Especially since everyone's talking about it now. Everyone was talking about that for Bitcoin, and then it didn't happen, and everyone just got absolutely killed in odds, right? And everyone's now talking about it for SPY. So, you know, now since retail investors have actually caught up to that, it may not happen now, or it freaking might have already. Semiconductors are up 52% this month, right? Like, I mean, if you just look at freaking Soxel, I mean, this is just ridiculous. Intel,
Unreal.
TS, yeah, I'm like, this alone might be the freaking run that people are thinking. So, but
I
yeah,
mean, at some point, it might be a good opportunity to open up a inverse chips or semiconductors short
yeah,
ETF.
yeah. I mean,
Just keep trying with like a higher low type of thing instead of stop. But I think something also with back to SPY, if we start cooling off and consolidating, I definitely think in the near term, like medium term focus here, I think that would be very healthy. Just have the moving averages catch up, whatever,
yeah,
and then continue the run if Max follows through. But then also another point, more macro level. I think crashes have never occurred above the moving average. Like sure, like the beginning, like tops are a process. So yeah,
yeah,
like the beginning won't be below the moving averages, but once we start getting below those that 10, 20, 50-day moving averages, I think it could be much more in play.
So, can you go more in detail on that? Like, so what do
Yep.
you exactly mean by it only happens below the EMAs, or is it
So
above?
like one SPY, for example, just
Hmm.
goes below that. What do you have there? A 10-day EMA or something up top?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, 10. So that, yeah, crashes only happen below the 10 and 20. So
Hmm. Okay. Yeah.
yeah, and tops are a process, of course. So
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it
Of
could be
course.
months from now, but I don't know, or even next week. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah. If that happens, then yeah, it's definitely going to be a big process. Um. Did.
Right, like on the bear side, if we reclaim the 10 and 20 on the bear side, like down,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then
Because.
start rolling over under those, yeah,
Yeah. Because Bitcoin did that. It didn't look like it because we were so high, but that manipulation ledge was huge, and then we started going
right.
below that, and that's when we started to really sell off. So yeah, that's definitely possible. You know, but that would be pretty hard to believe that for SPY to do that. I mean, that would have to. I mean, I don't know. I guess mine's 5% a week. I guess that's doable. So I mean, we're doing it back
Yeah,
here.
I mean, those three
No,
white
not really.
soldiers right there. What are those? Like 10%
Yeah,
gains?
three and a
Crazy.
half, almost 5% there. Yeah, so we'd have to see a really sharp move down. Um, yeah, so yeah, because we didn't get a massive rally on the tariff. I mean, it looks like it, but not compared to this. Not compared to this. So
Yeah,
and this was also fueled by volume. I mean, we had huge volume spikes here. Versus this,
exactly.
there is not a single high volume here. It's all just straight decrease in volume. So, you know, the manipulation play might actually happen. You know, I'm actually kind of leaning more to that now than I was before because I didn't actually see that at the Mag 7. So that actually, dude, that is bad. So, you know, that is the two scenarios, I guess, is that, you know, the Mag 7 does break out of this leading diagonal. And for like my clients, for my viewers for the YouTube channel, you know, a leading diagonal is a wave 5 top signal. So, you know, that's definitely not a good sign. Not a good sign at all. If that is true, then, you know, we're about to have a really sharp pullback. So, yeah, so that's definitely not a good sign at all. So, I mean, maybe Luke Davis is right because I know Luke Davis was talking about that. He thinks we're going to have a flash 10% crash starting this month into the new Fed chairman. Um, but which is possible. I mean, especially where you saw the Max 7, that's definitely possible. I just don't think it's going to be 10%. I think if it does pull back, it's going to be significantly more. But I mean, hopefully we do just get a small pullback into these EMAs and stuff and you start bouncing. But because you know,
That would be healthy. Yeah.
yeah, because I mean, Meta's sitting at the higher low support right now. After that earnings, after that rejection, so we do need to start bouncing pretty soon for Meta. The Tesla does look super primed. I mean, that looks really primed for some upside. We did hold that retest level after that consolidation phase. So, you know, I'll definitely make a lot more money to the upside, but you know, my biggest position is CVI. So, I mean, if the market pulls back, and then I guess I won't make money, but I'll be flat. So, I guess that'll be fine by me. But yeah, that's definitely something to keep in consideration for sure.
So, what do you think about the Apple chart? Their earnings turned out pretty good. They had a pop.
Yeah, I mean, so looking at this, we did break to the upside of that wedge. However, let's see where we bounced at the fib. I don't think that was a proper high or low. Let me see. Because usually, actually, let me pull out the photo really fast because this is actually part of my strategy. Here it is. So when we actually go to break a trend line, wedge, bull flag, bear flag, whatever it is, we actually will reject first and then go ahead and form that higher low. Ideally to the 50% fib, sometimes to the 38, but almost never in between there. Never above the 38. So, and this did fall short of the 38. Barely, almost hit it, but it barely fell short and actually seen lower. So, it wasn't really a proper higher low, and we did break above. However, it was a huge gap up, immediate sell off, and almost actually we basically saw the target already, the minimum target. So, you know, I definitely think I don't think I mean it may not happen, but there's definitely a possibility where this turns into a false breakout just because of that no higher low, and then off of that, immediate sell off on that daily. So there is a chance next week Apple does end up just, especially the Max 7 play does happen that leading diagonal. There's a chance that we just soar back into that wedge for a false breakout, and then we start pulling back even more for that higher low, and then go back for a break. That is definitely possible. Or we pull back and just go for that retest. But either way, I definitely see a pullback for Apple. Um, do we make? No, we didn't actually fully break the high. Now another thing for Elliott wave, Apple, by the rule book, Apple cannot make a new high because that will invalidate. Technically, there is like almost no Elliott wave that is done properly for Apple. This was the only one scenario that's possible with Elliott wave that I reviewed. I mean, I reviewed this chart for literally hours on a call with one of my other member clients, and we broke it down. This is literally the only possible way, which was this is actually the wave 5 top here. Now, we didn't break the high, right? So it hasn't been broken yet. Not saying we can't go back to this red zone or see new highs. We definitely can. I'm sure I probably missed something, but as of how I have it drawn now, and from all the research I've done on Apple, we technically can't make a new high. And so, if that is true, and we do make a false breakout, then that does go with and signal the market, being very 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 bad, right? That won't be good for the market, especially with that Mag 7 leading diagonal. But yeah, I mean, I can definitely see Apple pulling back either for a false breakout or at least a retest. What was your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think good earnings pop under all time high resistance. They might
Yeah,
not reach that new all time high. I don't know. If it starts consolidating sideways, then there's more of a chance in my book. But
yeah,
I don't know. I don't
yeah,
know with long term.
yeah. I would, if the leading diagonal for the Mag 7 doesn't play out and stuff, we do go bullish. I definitely see Apple can push through 345, 342. Just because that's what Meta is showing, that's what Tesla is showing, that's what Nvidia is showing, right? And Microsoft definitely has more room to go. So, Apple definitely could, um, but it wouldn't be the top one I'm watching. I'd be mainly watching Meta, Tesla, and yeah, probably mainly Meta and Tesla. Everything else is basically gone. I mean, Microsoft you could do, but long-term investment, absolutely. Microsoft is amazing for the long term because it's already been beaten down a lot, but I think there's definitely could be more long term for Microsoft if the market does correct. I mean, there's definitely be a lot bigger move, but especially since this head and shoulders here. So, but I would absolutely love another leg higher for the Mag 7 before we actually do pull back. I would make a lot more money doing that, right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, I hold CVI, so and that's oil basically. So I mean, SPY goes up, it goes down, it doesn't matter. My CVI position will be good. So I mean, I won't be opposed for a big crash or even a small crash, but I definitely would make more money to the upside if Mag 7 does start pushing higher. But that now it's actually hard to say that after looking at the Mag 7 chart. That's pretty hard to say after seeing this. So especially with that short term bear side divergence too. So yeah.
Do we have any earnings coming up left in the mags? Is it
Um,
Nvidia?
Tesla already had it, Amazon already had it, Nvidia is coming up here in a few weeks. We have 17 days. Yeah, 17 days to next earnings. Microsoft's already good, Apple's good, Google's good, Meta's good. So just Nvidia.
Hmm. I think that'll be a big one.
Yeah. I mean, Nvidia does show that we will push for a smaller, like higher or lower. So I mean, that's definitely possible. The Mag 7 does pull back, and then Nvidia pulls back to around that 50, 62% fib area. Yeah, so say it's 62% fib area. That's possible for the Mag 7. We do something like this. Because you can see every single, for Elliott's wave, we have wave A, B, C, D, and E. Every single one has to have a subwave of A, B, C. We have one here, right? A, B,
Mhm.
C, and so on. And so, that is definitely possible. We do pull back for NVIDIA, and that would justify the higher low for the Mag 7 and for SPY. But it would have to be a really small higher low. I mean, that's not a big move from NVIDIA. That's just 5.5%, right? Um, we almost did that in one day, Thursday. So it won't be a huge move for NVIDIA. It would have to consolidate. So And if that happens, max 7, that would mean because we have a leading diagonal, minimum target 64, 68 that we have to go to if we break below this. So, there's a possibility where we just sweep out just like that and then go higher and Nvidia maybe consolidates, but that's definitely possible. So, actually, you know what? I think that's most likely going to happen. Um, yeah, actually, I'll probably put that as my base case is that we will get at least a short pullback. But yeah, I'll say my base case is probably now that we're actually going to pull back short term and then push higher, and then my second case would be probably the massive pullback. So just because Nvidia is also showing that too now, and definitely after seeing this Mag 7 chart. So
I definitely like that short pullback and higher highs
yeah,
way more.
yeah, yeah. I think that's definitely possible. So actually, I think that's what's probably going to happen, and then we won't know if we're going to pull back more until we start failing at some support levels. But as of right now, yeah, I'll say it's probably my base case. Um,
Yeah, I think if we do get the short pullback or even more sideways trading for mags, do you mind just drawing out from the low down in end of March up to the first point of consolidation? Like,
with the fib.
oh, no, no, sorry, just with the measurement tool for the percent gain.
Oh yeah, from here
Kind of want to just show you my power trend PT if it does break to the upside.
like this. Oh, or do you mean the
Just from the low, yeah.
I
Like
need
end of March, whatever
I
the
can grab
percent
I can
gain
grab
was.
this price range. There we go. So that's 22.5% about.
Okay, so from there to that first point of consolidation with flag, because then it stopped like trading above the 5 day EMA and the power trend slowed down. So yeah, we got 22%. So 22% from the top of this flag would be the ultimate PT if we do get that shorter pullback and then follow through eventually.
Wait, to
So
what?
yeah, like 22% from the top of that flag pattern you have there, or the rising wedge.
What are you? I'm a little confused. What do you mean? 23% from where? From right here?
Yep, just a 22% gain from right there.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see. Just double it. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll just do this.
because the midpoint of the end of the power trend, or like that's considered the
Okay.
ultimate PT power trend.
Okay. I see. Um.
So that's a potential too.
Okay. Let's just say we pull back to, and we'll see something. I've never used this, but I have a feeling
Mhm.
that's going to be around the 1.6 fib on the dot, almost on the dot.
Wow,
Yeah. So
wow.
yeah, because that kind of when you double this length, it's rounding around to that 1.6 fib. It's probably around there. So um, to that tireless 50% fib. So that definitely lines up. If we do pull back to that 50% fib, which would be a pretty sharp pullback, but that'd be about
Yeah,
8%. That's about what people are thinking with this new Fed chairman, and that's definitely possible. And then we do get a massive rally to the end of the year, and then we start to fold over for the market pretty heavily. I think we're definitely due for a correction, especially the macro. The macro is not good now. This oil, right? Even at the end of the war, right now in open straight, oil cannot go back down to the 60s. It's just not. I don't see that as possible. Just because they can't get the straight formos to be back to the previous flow in and out. And I'm sure there's gonna be some type of deal where Iran is gonna be taxing them more or something like that, and plus getting their operations back to normal. It's gonna take a lot longer and stuff. So oil is not gonna go back down where it was. So it is gonna be higher. And we already saw with the inflation report that they had. We had, was it last week or 2 weeks ago? But it was not good. It was definitely coming in hot. So and they were expecting two rate cuts by the end of the year, right? And now that has significantly gone down. From the last Fed, oh sorry, not the last, second from last, not the one last week, but the one before then. They were talking about how uncertain the market was, and that they don't even know if they're going to cut rates anymore. They're actually kind of leading to just holding rates and possibly hike if things start picking up. And as of right now, nothing's getting better; it's getting worse. where Trump is going on and on about how the war is about to end, but he's been saying it for 3 months now, right? It's ended. We won the war, and then now we're back at bombing them. Oh, now the Strait of Hormuz is closed. Now it's back open. Now it's closed. Right now it's partially opened. So the longer this goes, the worse it gets, right? So, and if they start hiking rates, that's it. That's it. So they held rates the last time, which was expected, but now this next one, and maybe not this next one, but sometime in October, November, December, they very well could hike rates if this does not get resolved. I mean, they can't cut rates. I don't see how they could cut rates. I mean, inflation would just be out of control. So,
Yeah,
but
it would be fair.
yeah, but I mean, I guess it's the quote I said in the last round table is, does the government, because if they hike rates, they also fuck themselves over with the the debt crisis, right? They they're going to suffer a lot if they hike rates. So it's like, well, do they screw the consumers over with inflation, or do they screw themselves over with with the debt? So it's like, so it's a lose lose situation. But I mean, shoot, from what the government does, they might just freaking cut rates and just bring on inflation. But it's definitely not going to be good for the market either way. Um, so personally, I mean, I said that since day one on the first roundtable talk, but it's just, but that with macro, it's really, really hard to time it. I mean, that could be freaking next month. That could be the end of this year. That could be freaking end of next year, right? I mean, it's really hard to actually time these things. But well, I guess we'll just follow the chart and see, play it by ear, and then see how when they hike rates, if they hike rates, and what the Fed decides to do.
Absolutely.
What's your opinion on that? What about oil? Do you think oil is gonna make a new high? Let me go to the chart really fast. But
Short term, yeah. I mean, yeah. Let's see the chart before I say anything.
yeah, we have a falling wedge, and we haven't hit the top of it, which is usually the main target for falling wedges. So and right now in after hours, we are bouncing at this EMA. So
Can you go to the weekly?
yeah,
Yeah, right at that previous 120 resistance. I mean, I definitely see a pullback. I don't think it's keeping structure,
hmm
but if we had tighter consolidation, yeah, I could definitely see higher highs. I think maybe one more attempt at that 120 range and then reverse. But I don't know. I don't know with the geopolitics. It's really dependent on that.
yeah, yeah. I kind of agree with that. I mean, I don't think oil is going to stay this high for much much longer. I mean, I think we're going to sweep out these highs one more time, and then I think that's going to be basically it, and then we're going to start falling back down. And then that'll be enough to definitely fuel my CVI position up to my targets. So that'll be a okay with me. So, um, but yeah, but shoot, oil went back to 120, and who knows how long it'll stay there? It may consolidate like we did back here in 2022. We may consolidate at those levels for a while, right? Kind of like how we are right now. We're consolidating, right? So if it continues to consolidate at 120, for the next 2, 3, 4 months, it's not a good sign at all. I mean, macro is going to be absolutely screwed. So,
The structure also looks pretty similar to the last time, the one you're just showing. The structure of this,
oh yeah, back here,
whatever you call like
yeah,
not the prettiest.
yeah, it is consolidation. So yeah, no, I think it's definitely nearing the top. It's just a question
Yeah.
of how long is it going to consolidate for. I mean, here we did have a falling wedge here actually, and then we pushed up to the top of it, about the top of it. So, but that also stayed at the top of the market, right? So yeah, but oh, actually, we are kind of near the exact same level. Actually, that's kind of funny. Falling wedge, we push, fall just a little bit short of the actual high, and then the market just corrected. So that is actually really funny. That and then now with the Max 7 chart looking like that, it would be comical if it does the exact same thing as 2022. That would be comical, but knowing the market, it very well might.
It definitely could.
Uh, but it's hard to predict these things. You just gotta play by ear right now, especially in this market. I mean, I guess it really depends. I called the top in the tariff crash, and I made a lot of money shorting it. That entire move down, but that was much much easier to do because Trump was going to office preaching how he's going to put tariffs and everything, and then if you just open Twitter or X, every single person on there was just insanely bullish. Like it was just insane. I remember that time people for Tesla saying we're about to go to $1,000 a share. I'm like, holy crap, right? That's another double, and we're at all-time highs. And of course, that was the exact top. I'm like, that's not going to happen. Everyone's just extremely bullish. Retail is extremely bullish. Trump was coming into office, and he was preaching tariffs, and then of course, what did he do? Put tariffs and everything, and then we just absolutely dumped, right? And so, but now we don't really have that. Now retail is actually bearish. Most people are on the sidelines, like people are waiting lower for Bitcoin. People are waiting for around 49K, and I am too. Well, sort of. I've been buying long term for sure, but I definitely want to buy more at 49K. So, most people are. So we may not even play out for this wedge. We may just break above and just push higher. Um, Same thing could happen for SPY. SPY, since a lot of people are on the sidelines, we very well may just get that short pullback and rip back to new highs. So it's very tricky. I could see literally every scenario. I can see us freaking soaring back to highs. I can see us entering a correction. I can see us freaking chopping for the next freaking 2 months. So it is very hard to actually predict this market right now, or even be in any positions with conviction. So
That bearish RSI divergence, I can't keep my eyes off it.
yeah, yeah, I know it's not a good look at all. It's
It's
definitely not a good
sketchy.
look. So and we're
Actually,
nearing
since
it.
you meant, or since you brought up back when Trump was elected, you were on the daily before.
Hmm.
I don't know if you remember the gap up, like the week of. That was insane. I don't think I'll ever forget it. It was
What
back in
this week?
November.
That was
A little
January.
to the left there. It was like just
Oh, this.
November. Yep,
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah. How big was that? 2.5% gap up. Yeah, that's a pretty big gap. Um, yeah, but it's hard to comparing it because they're not the same. They're not really the same thing. It's just, I think when you look at technicals, every single correction or pullback tops out the exact same way. The exact same. Every single one. Tariff did the same thing. Consolidate. We had that, I guess, say blow off top or manipulation like here, and then we just fold back over. Right? Bitcoin did it. Bitcoin does on every single one. Every single correction did the same thing. Consolidation, manipulation leg, pullback. Right? Consolidation, small pullback, manipulation, ultimate high, and then correction. Right? We did it on literally every single one. So it is very, especially with the bear side divergence, it's every time, right? Every time. So some a little bit less. I think this one's a little bit less of a structured one, but for the most part, it has basically done it. So let's see. This one didn't have the manipulation leg, but it definitely had the bear side divergence here. So it's like every single pullback has the same principles of bear side divergence, manipulation leg, consolidation. Just that false push higher. Bitcoin had it here. We had that manipulation like here, even on tariffs. Same thing back here. SPY did it for tariffs 2008, 2022. Oil did the same thing. And now that's what we're getting now. Now it is more dramatic, right? And that's kind of where, from what I found out of charts, right? The smaller it is, the smaller the pullback. The bigger it is, the bigger the pullback. The bigger the divergence, the bigger the pullback, right? And so huge divergence, absolutely huge divergence. That's exactly what we had on Bitcoin. That divergence, was a multi-year divergence. That was literally 2.5 years long for that divergence. So, and then we had a correction. SPY again, same thing, 2.5 years of that divergence, and now you can kind of see how we consolidated for SPY here, and then we made that manipulation leg. Well, SPY consolidated for a long time, and that was a huge manipulation leg, assuming we rolled over. So, that is a very, very massive technical lineup for a massive pullback. So that's why I'm kind of leaning that if we do get a 10% pullback, that may just fuel the move to actually get the full on correction, right? That may very well fuel it, right? And
Absolutely.
that based off of Elliott wave for Nvidia, right? This is not bullish at all. This is so for my Elliott wave, I have Nvidia in wave five, right? And rising wedges like this can only happen in wave five, so it just justifies it, right? If this rising wedge wasn't there, then absolutely. Who knows? Because with Elliott wave fives are very subjective because it could just be an extended wave three, wave five could actually be much higher. It's very subjective. But as soon as you put a rising wedge in it, that immediately just full conviction that it has to be wave five. So that is where it gets really alarming. But I just hard to believe the market pull back without the wavy because actually you do have to get the wavy technically with the light wave. So I think actually I do like your first scenario that you had is we pull back for a small higher low for Nvidia and for SPY and for the Max 7, and then we just go for a massive push higher, and then we probably will get a end of year pullback, maybe the start of 2027 pullback or correction. That's where I'm kind of leaning to. But I guess it really all depends once we get to there, So
I think that makes sense.
yeah, because
Another thing that kind of works with your thesis is like things are starting to get very stupid, and things won't stop getting stupid until they get stupider. Like you got Avis, right? CAR ticker, that stuff going on. Oh, there's
oh yeah,
mentions of
car,
GameStop coming back. Like some other company just mentioned that they
yeah,
started producing chips and they're not even close to a chip company and they just flew. So like with things getting stupid, that's also a sign.
yeah. I mean, yeah, car absolutely soaring. The freaking semiconductors, right? I mean, on Omega AI on my sector rotation, like literally just that entire sector just off the freaking charts. Like it's just insane. This is insane. But now with this entire move, it does kind of like if this is just wave three, it does signal another push higher in it. Short term pullback, another push higher, which does justify the Nvidia, right? Nvidia pulls back short term, SPY pulls back short term, and then another leg higher till near the end of the year when it will pull back. So, I mean, that it's definitely possible. But we don't have to listen to this. We can make that huge manipulation leg and just absolutely just crash. So,
Yeah.
it's just really something to keep your eyes on and keep watching. Like AMD, that's just
Can you go
absolutely
to
amazing.
Micron?
Is that SMCI?
MU. I think you
Oh,
have it
yeah.
in your
Oh,
sidebar.
Micron. Yeah, yeah. So Bears are divergent still.
There.
So
I saw some take on Micron. Like it broke out of that. I guess you can call it a base up there. And it's more of a high type flag. That's not a base. Um, but someone like one of the sayings is once you break out of a base, you should never see it again. And that's kind of wild when you look at like
oh,
Micron's
you think
chart, for
this is?
example.
Yeah. So that's what I was kind of looking at. Is what this is. I would call this like an AMD setup for the ICT traders is accumulation, manipulation, and then distribution, right?
Yeah.
So looking at this is a really, really bullish sign. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a bottom. It could really, literally just do short term pullback and do this, and that's it. It doesn't necessarily mean that's going to, huge move higher, but usually they only happen at a bottom. So like that's what did that? That made a lot. Oh no, that's what I was going to talk. Yeah. So let me actually take a photo of this really fast because I was going to do this for the roundtable, but screw it, I'll just do it here. And that is on our last call on the part two roundtable, we talked about. Actually, hold on. Let me go to it. We talked about RKLB, right? Rocket Lab. That is the name we talked about. Same exact
Mhm.
setup: accumulation, manipulation, and then distribution. We talked about that at the low, at the manipulation spot, right? Entire photos here. I was breaking it all down in Fig Jam, right? Part two, Rocket Lab before. On the video, you can see that on the weekly, literally right after that manipulation leg was closed, and then we're showing a push to that red zone, and that was the after, right? Weekly, absolutely just soared. I made a decent amount of money on that move, and so absolutely amazing setup. AMD setups definitely play out really well, and this move is not done. Usually when we get the AMD setup, we do get that 50% pullback for the higher low, and we rip even higher, and that's what Rocket Lab is getting right now. We are bouncing perfectly off of this for value up and perfectly off this 50% fib, right? And the EMAs, like absolutely perfect. And there's earnings coming up in next week, right? On Thursday post market, right? So, this earnings could definitely just make us push back to all time high, absolutely. And so, uh, this was definitely a step that I resold everything literally like at this peak once we start touching these red zones. But I will definitely be looking for a reentry at this green zone, especially this upcoming week. I guess it depends on SPY. If SPY really does start to roll over hard, then maybe not. But if not, then Rock Lab definitely does look good for entry off that green zone, especially if we look back at ASTS, and ASTS is bouncing off this bull flag, right, off this wavy, in which it's a little bit iffy. It's not a very clean one, but I would say it's probably one. And so if this does play out, there's definitely a chance that we push up to 164 ASTS going into that SpaceX IPO sector play that people keep talking about, right? This would definitely fuel that move. So, you know, that could definitely be good. Do you have any trades you're kind of watching? Just like a maybe a couple week play, 1 3 months play.
Right now, I'm just playing based off the power trend, trying to play some short term plays. I have a couple leaps, but obviously, like long term investing, still doing that. But
Yeah,
yeah, just playing the trend really.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, so that's basically what I'm trying to do, but it's very tricky because the trend may end. So it's just like, it is hard buying into, this Mag 7 chart that looks like this, right? It's very hard buying on this. And so, that's definitely really tough to do. Um,
Yeah, it's not
so
like you can buy it on weakness either, because I mean it was just weak.
yeah, well, sort of. I mean, it depends, I guess. I mean, you could have for Meta, that was wavy balance. You could have for Meta. We could have for Nvidia. You could for Tesla. I personally wouldn't have done, which I know I didn't for Tesla. I got it on that retest, but it's just too much risk. Amazon, Amazon, no, definitely not. Microsoft, no. Apple, no, not really. Google, definitely not Google. I would have never would have expected this move. That was insane move for Google. Um, but but overall, I think about half the Max 7 was kind of showing that. But it is definitely, what ticker were we on? Was it SPY? No, we were on the Max. So I mean, buying it now, like that's the tricky part because Meta looks super bullish, Tesla looks super bullish, Nvidia does signal a small pullback, right? And so it's just like in order for this to go down, they all have to go down, right? That would mean Meta would have to pull back at minimum of this gap fill, but even like way lower, like it would barely even stay valid for this, right? Apple would 100% be a false breakout. Nvidia would pull back, for a pretty deep wave B, but it's definitely possible. Wave B, I guess, could touch this as long as it doesn't break this low. So I mean, it's definitely possible that we do pull back a lot more with the Max 7. I don't want that because I am heavy in Tesla and Meta, so I'll definitely have to be trimming those. But it's possible. I definitely won't be buying now, I guess, after seeing that. So I definitely not be buying the Max 7 here. Probably not in SPY in general. I would probably definitely be waiting. I think the move has kind of already been made, and now we're just waiting for a smaller pullback. But I guess it depends. ASTS and um, what was the other tick? ASTS and Rocket Lab do look pretty good, but if SPY pulls back, then you have to kind of accept your fate that those are going to die. So
Yeah. Well, Mr. Bear, you bring up a lot of good points on this mag spot it's at. I'm gonna have to jump, but thank you for having me.
yeah, yeah, no problem. Thanks for joining. So yeah. But all right, so I mean that was basically the Mag 7. That was basically SPY actually the overall market. We did go more into what I was planning on too, but that's a great, amazing, more value for this video. But if you liked it, share it, and I'll see you in the next one.